and your sons and daughters will prophesy. Fair use. Make sure this is recording.
Is seizing tankers left and right near Venezuela. A Russian shadow fleet ship just sailed straight into port and unloaded, right under America's nose. Here's what happened. The U.S. Coast Guard has seized 3 oil tankers in the past 2 weeks, enforcing Trump's blockade. But when a Russian-flagged tanker carrying naphtha approached Venezuelan waters, the USS Stockdale, a billion-dollar destroyer, just watched it pass. U.S. surveillance aircraft circled 200 miles out, but didn't get any closer. Why? Russia has 183 vessels in its shadow fleet, and Moscow made it crystal clear, touch our energy ships, and it's an act of war. The U.S. can board tankers from Panama or Venezuela without much risk. Worst case, you get economic retaliation. But intercepting a Russian-flagged vessel, that's a direct confrontation with a nuclear power. So here's the trap the U.S. is stuck in. They announced the largest naval blockade in South American history, 15,000 troops, 11 warships. But the blockade only works on countries that won't fight back. Russia called their bluff, and the U.S. blinked. One tanker got through, then another. And now the whole strategy looks like a joke. This isn't just about one shipment. If Russia can deliver oil to Venezuela openly, so can China, so can Iran. The blockade isn't holding, and everyone's watching.
The Lord came to me in a warning dream last night, saints. And in this dream, I remember looking into the skies. And I couldn't see nothing at first because of the clouds. And then out of nowhere, I saw these jet planes and these cargo planes emerge. And out of these jet planes and cargo planes came men in parachutes, in droves. They began to invade America. And I remember in the dream, waking up in the dream, seeing these airplane parts scattered in his backyard. And I remember videotaping it and getting ready to upload it on YouTube. And I was reminded of Russia. And I remember telling my auntie, look what's happening. Do you see what's happening? And she was nonchalant about it. And she said, oh yeah, airplanes. I said, no. Do you see what's going on? God is allowing this to happen. He's bringing judgment on America. A foreign military is about to invade. And I remember telling my brother the same exact thing. Do you see what's going on? Do you see what's happening? Do you see what's taking place? And he was nonchalant about it. And I remember slapping him as to wake him up. Man, look, we are about to be invaded. And the dream was so real, saints. It was modern day, but it looked like America was desolate. Like a reset button had taken place to make it look like old times. And I remember waking up from the dream, repenting to the Lord, asking Him to forgive me for my sins. I don't know when this is going to happen. I'm not going to set a date or a calendar month. That's up to the Lord. But the dream was urgent. Russia was the word that I heard. And this is the first dream that I've had of Russia invading. It was like the airwaves in America was blanketed with parachuters and airplanes. It's time to repent. It doesn't matter who's in office. America's fate is sealed. Take us to the Lord in prayer. We will be invaded soon. Shalom.
Saw nuclear weapons going off over major American cities. I saw foreign troops on American soil. And I saw that for many years. Men, weapons, ammunition, tanks, artillery shells, war supplies had been pre-positioned in America. And I saw many warehouses stocked full of weapons and supplies for an invasion of America. I saw what I thought was an asteroid strike that hit the Earth in what looked like Western Canada. And that strike turned the water poisonous for almost all of America. And what I saw was a massive rock going into the Atlantic Ocean, and I reasoned it to be an asteroid, but now that I think about it, it could have been that volcanic mountain at La Palma going into the ocean. I do not really know. What I was shown was a massive rock that was burning on fire, that was hitting the ocean and causing a monster of a tsunami. It caused a massive wall of water to hit the America's east coast, and that wall of water was maybe a mile high or even higher. This wall of water went many miles inland, destroying the entire east coast. And for a time, the state of Florida was totally underwater. Jeremiah 51:42. The sea has come upon Babylon. She is covered with the multitude of the waves thereof. Revelation 8:8-11. And the the second angel sounded, and as it were a mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third parts of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. I saw a mega earthquake on the west coast that caused two other faults to rip wide open, causing another massive tsunami on the west coast. Then these earthquakes caused several major volcanoes to erupt. I saw the New Madrid Fault rupture, which ripped America in half from the Great Lakes down to New Orleans. And at some points, this was up to 100 miles wide in some areas. America's heartland was turned into a great sea between two continents. And I saw Yellowstone erupt with a massive eruption. I saw several other volcanoes all erupting at the same time. Then the scene was that I was shown was from above the earth, and I was witnessing all this on the big screen. And then it zoomed down and in close, and I saw civil war in America. I saw Americans shooting and bombing other Americans. Everyone seemed to have gone mad, rioting, looting, burning, much murder in the streets.
We can't wait for it.
I saw blood in all the streets of America. I saw bodies piling up everywhere, and no one to remove them. I saw flies everywhere. They filled every home. They were everywhere. And the smell was unbearable. You could smell death of rotting corpses everywhere and in every home. I saw paper money blowing down the street, and no one gave it a thought, as it was worthless paper. Everyone was broke. Money and gold were worthless. The only thing that had any value was food and clean water. Ezekiel 7:19. They shall cast their silver into the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. I saw America in darkness from coast to coast, and it was a total darkness, and then the lights just rolled out across America.
not a prediction. It's a script already in motion. A global blackout is coming, and it's not from a storm. It's from a switch being pulled. The elites know they can't fully roll out their next phase. Digital currency, total surveillance, AI governance, while the old system still breathes. So the plan? Collapse the grid, crash the economy, and reboot society under new digital control. They'll blame the sun. They'll blame the weather. They'll say it's climate chaos. But behind the scenes, it's deliberate. Cyber Polygon, a WEF-backed simulation, already rehearsed it. A cyber attack that shuts down banks, power, communication. No energy, no access, no options. And when chaos hits, they'll offer the solution. CBDCs, biometric ID, smart grids. Control disguised as convenience. To make things worse, they're geoengineering the skies to block the sun, under the lie of cooling the earth. But why dim the sun? Why spread metal particles in the air? Because a panicked, disconnected, sun-starved population is easier to control. This isn't a theory. It's the pretext for the Great Reset.
America turns dark and cold, and the lights went out all over America as if an EMP weapon had been used against America. Now, when you see photos and video today of America from space at night, America looks like a brilliant, shining jewel, all shining as there are lights everywhere. I saw America go dark and quiet. And I only saw this for a moment, but my impression was that it was from some kind of an attack upon America. I give you Isaiah 47:5. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. Everyone was starving, and the people, they were eating bugs, bark, leaves, grass, as the hunger pains was so great. I saw people cooking and eating other people. I saw parents cooking and eating their children. I saw parents trading their children for a handful of beans and rice. Cannibalism was so rampant that no one gave it a thought, as it had become common and normal. This, I gathered, was in the tribulation, and I've had several dreams about that period of time, and my impression was that this was not off in the distant future, but was near present time. I saw this and much more. My focus has always been on America, as it has sinned the most and drug or forced other nations into her abominations. But no part of the earth was spared. Every nation, every island, every people, everywhere was touched by this great tribulation.
And we all know what that testing is. There is no rapture, but meaning we ain't gonna be so enticed to want to go get it just to survive.
After this Christmas, time speeds up even more and goes into hyperdrive, and months now seem like days, and calamities will come right on top of one another with no break in between. And these calamities, they will be staggering, even earth-shaking. Emergency measures will be called by the government, but it will be too little, too late. I talked to a lot of people that you would be shocked how many people are being laid off right now and right before Christmas. And not after Christmas like normal, but right before Christmas. And the only jobs available are jobs like Uber driver, Uber Eats, DoorDash, those kinds of jobs that pay almost nothing. And you have to rely on tips for most of your wages. Millions will be laid off next year. Millions will go homeless next year. I saw millions of Americans lining the ditches, going out of every town, every city in America, from small towns to major cities. Since all cities had made it illegal to be homeless, the homeless have had to leave every town and live in the ditches just outside the city limit of every town in America. And you think that this cannot happen here? Well, it is. It has already started in many cities across America, and it will be coming to your city. You wait and see. Mark my word. The plight of these homeless is terrible. No food, no water, no sanitation facilities, disease run rampant. No campers or RVs are allowed, as they have been banned on streets, even outside city limits. So everyone lives in tents or cardboard boxes in the ditches. Now with all hope gone, they just wait to die. But there is much pain and suffering before death comes for them. I know, because I have seen this. After this Christmas, everything falls apart. Everything you have ever trusted is gone. Power will become hit and miss, and then we'll lose power altogether. And no power means no TV, no internet, no cell phones, no heat, no air, no lights. Without power, nothing works. And then no fire department, no police, no ambulance, no hospitals, no clinics, no doctor's offices are open. No one to call and no way to call someone if you end up in an emergency, as you are on your own. Roving gangs of young men will go from door to door, and they will kill everyone and take what they want. Millions of very nasty demons will be released upon the earth in those days, and they will inhabit many, making them do unspeakable things. They will have the power of many strong men. They will act more like animals than men, and they will walk, but not like men. And they will contort their bodies into shapes that are humanly impossible.
So there you have it. A spoiler alert of things to come. Now, like everything else, though, we know that, things are going to ramp up, right? Because the Most High is already showing judgment, and he's already showing that he's speeding things up for the elect's sake. Again, 2026 is, last year was a hopeful year of of our deliverance and the death and destruction of Esau Edom. I don't know what Apostle Tars called it this year, but still waiting on that. I'll know when brothers start to camp as to what it's called, and then I'll entitle my camp the same name, right? Shalom, first and foremost, like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone who are teaching the truth and sincerity. And shout out to Yakims out there in the four corners of the earth proclaim this truth. Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kadash, Brakatam. So, again, we, in the midst of the war, we know that official land strike has been made, against Venezuela, and like everything else, so it seems that Russia's coming to intercept. In other words, this is going to amp up some. Maybe even a lot. An interview conducted. Venezuelan President Maduro declined to comment on the reports of a claimed U.S. ground attack inside Venezuela. President Trump claimed the U.S. knocked out a big drug-related facility. He's always saying that he's going after narco-terrorists. Maduro said, when asked about the alleged attack, according to the transcript, "What I can tell you is that our national defense system, which combines popular military and police forces, has guaranteed and continues to guarantee the territorial integrity, the peace of the country, and the use of and enjoyment of all our territories, and all our people are safe and at peace," the Venezuela leader said. So, like everything else, though, he's not going to comment too much on it, In other words, you don't tell your enemy what your strategy is. So no wonder why he's not going to say, Because like everything else, though, Venezuela has a lot of allies, and, they're not the only player out there, Babylon the Great thinks that they're the only player, but there's a lot of other players. Trump's gunboat diplomacy triggers sharp drop in Venezuela oil output. See, what they're doing is they're trying to destroy their economy and put pressure on Maduro to step down, ultimately. Bloomberg cites new internal data from Petroles de Venezuela showing that oil production in the Ronco Belt plunged by about 498,000 barrels per day on Monday, down roughly 25% over the past 2 weeks. Well, if this is true, definitely, Russia and other allies of theirs rely upon these shipments, so they're not going to just let it continue that way. And remember Trump's ambitions for Greenland. Denmark vows to stand firm against Trump's plan for Greenland. U.S. President earlier appointed a special envoy insisting Washington needs the world's largest island for national security. Statements come after U.S. President Trump appointed Louisiana Governor Landry as a special envoy to Greenland, an island under Danish sovereignty that the American terrorist had previously suggested should become part of the U.S. So about, pretty much, about wanting to take over another country, another people, as if it was something one could buy or own. We are not the ones seeking conflict, but let no one be in doubt. No matter what happens, we will stand firm on what is right or wrong. Saying that, look, Greenland, is a sovereign country, and we're not going to just idly stand by either. So that's a rumor of war. And then you got this rumor of war, which, like everything else, so you already know Ukraine is a major part of this region, and that's already a war. Well, Lithuania is not too far from Belarus. As Lithuania prepares for war, some fear they are intentionally stoking it, meaning provocating, right? Lithuania is preparing for possible armed conflict by strengthening bridges near the Belarusian border and building a ballistic defense line, while authorities are trying to avoid causing panic among the population, which basically means they're preparing for war. So like everything else, though, if you picked a side, expect ballistic missiles, which nothing can really stop them. The Lithuanian state has lived with the threat from Russia for centuries and is expected to live with them in the future. So they're obviously on the side of Ukraine. Everybody's going to have to pick a side. And in the midst of that, the brain device, the Neuralink, is going to be pushed this year. Through very much they're going to push this, all right? And like everything else, it's not even going to be an option, getting it in the hand. But this is the miracles, that Esau Edom's going to promise you of the things it can do, because we know what this douche Elon Musk is all about. Fair use.
Shalom, Laha Alahayim, peace to the gods, Nawathan, Kal, Halaliumla, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Hakodash, even no praises to Yahweh. In the name Yahweh Shai, in the name of the Holy Spirit, double honors unto the elder apostles, the elder bishops, and the heads and elders of all the camps of Great Muslim GMS who do well. Peace, blessings to the Bayat, Dawayat, the house of David, tabernacle of David, those predestined spirits of election scattered abroad. This is your brother Tazapanya of the Great Millstone, Washington, D.C. camp, Adawan Ratazah, Lord willing, this quick hit is edifying to the elect. So as you can see here on End Time Headlines, came out today, January 1st, 2026, the hopeful year, or not even, the hopeful year, the year of apostasy, agents, and sellouts, right? So while all these other camps, it's crazy because, one of the main ways you could see if somebody's sold out or is an agent is if they're going against the true doctrine of the MOTB, because there's either two reasons. It's either the Lord blinded you can't see it, or you sold out at this point with everything going on. All right, so this is not years down the line. This is happening. Okay, so it says Neuralink, the brain-computer interface company co-founded by Elon Musk, is preparing with a dramatic scale-up in production with plans to manufacture brain implants in high volumes by 2026. Now, why would one do that? Because you got to remember, he's a businessman. All right, businessmen always look at profit margin. They look at return on investment. Okay, so if he's going to spend all this money to manufacture, because it takes money to create these type of semiconductors that is implantable under the skin. Okay, he's seeing that he's going to benefit from it. Okay, it says, according to reporting from Reuters, Musk said the company intends to transition from limited clinical use to mass production, while also introducing fully automated surgical procedures to implant devices. So not only did the government have to give him the green light, because the only reason that it was at limited clinical use is because they couldn't go farther. All right, now they're going to do the mass production because it's pretty much ready to be implanted into anybody that wants it or needs it, and is going to be using AI robots in order to do it, which is going to cut down time drastically compared to a human brain surgeon. Okay, it says he stated that Neuralink will start high-volume production of brain-computer interface devices and move to an entirely automated surgical procedure in 2026. This announcement represents a major milestone for the company, which has spent years navigating regulatory scrutiny and technical hurdles. See? Neuralink received approval to begin human clinical trials in 2024 after the U.S. FDA initially rejected its applications in 2022 due to safety concerns. See, so they was wanting to do what they're doing now back then, but they got the things in place. You know how, Esau moved and capitalism moves and corporation moves, right? You got to get the right people, lobby to the right politicians, dude. And this is why he had to do all this thing, dark MAGA and trying to be close to Trump. And you see what I'm saying? They played a long game, okay? Since then, the company has focused on demonstrating that its technology can be safely implanted and function reliably in real-world conditions. The brain implants are designed primarily to help people with severe neurological impairments, including paralysis and spinal cord injuries. The device works by interpreting neural signals and translating them into digital commands, allowing users to interact with computers, phones, and other devices using only their thoughts. Musk has described the technology as a way to restore autonomy to individuals who have lost physical mobility, which is nothing but a false miracle, you see? Because what did Yahushua do when he was walking the earth 2,000 some odd years ago? He was restoring people to their autonomy, that when they was diseased, all right, whether it been to be healed by Yahushua for people to believe on the Son of Man, whether it was a judgment of their own sin, or was it a judgment of their forefathers' sin, which we are our forefathers, and they inherited that through the third and fourth generation. Okay, so, but either way, however you want to look at it, you see what I'm saying? The point is trying to do it on the left-hand side rather than spiritual power, artificial intelligence, not the true intelligence, okay, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the Heavenly Father that has been given down unto us, all right, through the comfort, the Holy Spirit, okay? Early human trials have already produced striking results. According to Reuters, patients implanted with Neuralink's device have been able to play video games, browse the internet, control computer cursors, and communicate online without physical movement. These demonstrations have helped validate the concept and fueled optimism about broader applications of brain-computer interfaces in medicine. By late 2025, Neuralink reported that 12 people with severe paralysis have received the implant and were actively using it. This growing number of successful cases is a key factor behind the company's confidence in expanding production. Musk emphasized that automation will be critical to scaling the, anytime you hear that word scale, means it's going to completely exponentially grow, all right? They need something to scale, or, you know what I'm saying? So they wanting to push it. This is why scriptures say, we're going to get to it, allowing implants to be placed more efficiently and consistently than traditional surgical methods. Financial backing, I wonder who was backing this financially. All right, the national banking families. It says has also strengthened Neuralink's position moving into the next phase. The company raised hundreds of millions of dollars in new funding in 2025, signaling strong investor confidence in both the technology and its long-term potential. With regulatory progress, real-world patient outcomes, and increased funding aligned, Neuralink sees 2026 as a turning point in making brain-computer interface technology available on much broader scale. So now let's get into the scriptures and then close it on out. We'll go to Revelation chapter 13. It's on in verse 16 and it reads, I might as well just highlight it too. So you can highlight, that's the thing sometimes. So I can literally highlight this whole chapter. Alright, Revelation 13 and 16 and it reads, and he causeth all. So see, that's where that scale for this technology. They're trying to create the product in order to have enough to if every person on the planet wanted it, you see? But like the apostles have said, all right, through the Spirit, it makes sense that the majority of people is going to take the RFID chip in the hand rather than the BCI in the head, all right, because of accessibility, because of things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be of the higher class that is going to take the BCI. Okay, it says, and he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Let's look at that word forehead since we're talking about the BCI. I already know what it is. It's metapon. See? Metapon, right? The space between the eyes, the forehead, right? The root word is meta. All right, so it means with, after, behind. So it's between the eyes, but it's behind the eyes, which would be what? Your brain. Okay, so literal, perfect definition, description. Okay, and this is why Facebook renamed itself to Meta. All right, verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell, because right now it's pushing for medical things. Oh, they can move a computer mouse and play video games. Yeah, that's what they telling us, and that's the least they can do. We're talking about high level technology here. Okay, now,
Reprogram your brain like Total
main purpose
Recall.
in regards to the Bible and your actions is going to be the financial aspect of it. Because if they can move a computer mouse, that means that they're going to be able to go on Amazon without actually using their fingers to do it, because they're not going to be able if they're paraplegic or something. And they're going to be able to buy things, and if they wanted to open a business, sell it. You know? It says, save he that had the mark, the charagma, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of men, and that is Esau Edom. And his number is 606. All right. So Lord willing, I was edifying to the elect. All right, this is moving fast. Mass rollout. All right, 2026, man. Hey, man, Lord willing, keep praying we about here soon, because this hour of temptation. Matter of fact, let's do that real quick. Revelation chapter 3 and verse 10. It says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience. So this is what we're supposed to be doing right now. We're supposed to be patient. In Lamentations, it says that it is a good thing for a man to quietly wait for the salvation of the Lord. Okay? And you got to go into that word quietly to understand it's not you not saying nothing. All right? It's just you not doing wickedness and going out your way to either try to rush or Yahweh Shah coming back and things of that nature. All right? You're supposed to be doing what was commanded of you and your lot. All right? Not outside of your lot. Okay? So we're supposed to be keeping the word of our patience, being what? All of the hell that we're catching, continue to fight.
Yep.
All right? That's
Fight the good fight.
The good fight.
Yep.
Okay? And keep it. All right? Hold on to it. The truth that was given unto us. It says, and I will also keep thee. So see, it's you sowing into the spirit, you're gonna reap spiritual things. So if you keep the word of your patience, you are of Yahweh Shah's patience, you are sowing into the spirit. Okay? He's going to keep us from the hour of temptation if we do that, because you're getting the reward. You're on the return of your investment. It says, which shall come upon all the world. This is why it says a mass rollout. To try them that dwell upon the earth. Exactly. So this thing is not just an American thing. This thing is a worldwide thing. Okay? That hour of temptation being a time, a small amount of time, all right, that everybody's going to have to make the decision to either forsake, all right, the beast, the MOTB, its system, and live entirely off of the faith of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua if you're an Israelite, because other nations might not want to, take it as well, you know what I'm saying, on small numbers, but, they're going to pretty much get caught up, whether it be with the off-grid life, concentration camps, so on and so forth, because this thing is going into full-on draconian mode, okay? But yeah, so Lord.
Exactly. Full throttle. Narrow link, And we already know how wicked fucking Elon Musk is. And like everything else, though, last year he came in with a DOGE. We knew we'd be seeing more of this guy, right? And a pretend standoff with Trump, Well, like everything else, though, we definitely know that Esau always comes and pretends to make things better for you, right? Look at the miracles that this thing could do. And I don't know if I shared this before on YouTube or not, but years ago I actually met Elon Musk in Spokane. He came as a guest for Tesla, because they had a Tesla coil inside of Spokane, which is at the Riverfront Park, which is part of the World's Fair left. Anyway, he went, he actually did a whole demonstration of his Tesla coil, which was pretty good, and he began to talk about brain interfaces, and I did question him a few things, and he said it was very controversial, but I remember him back then, back in 1987, 88. Gotta remember, I'm a teenager, so this is way before the truth ever came, and I said, do you think that it is going to be possible to put brain interfaces into them? And he was so proud of it that well, it's very controversial, but I believe that give it about another 20 years or so, we may see the very first one. It's going to take a while, but we are developing it. So he was very proud about his design. You can just see, his design, to merge man with machine, and he was, again, we saw the fusion and everything else, of the Tesla coils. He gave a great demonstration of it. He's totally scientific, etc. That's who he was back in 1987 when I met him. Again, this was at the Science Museum inside the Riverfront Park. I don't even know if they even have that anymore. I know the Riverfront Park is still there. And I know that the IMAX theater was taken out of Riverfront Park in Spokane, but years ago I actually met him, so he's very ambitious about this and, promises to do great things, right? But, he's part of the elite, I would find out later. Very proud scientific man, right? So by science he's going to talk about all these great things that it can do, It's, he's definitely secular. He's not spiritual whatsoever. He's just a science guy, But we also know that the elite are going to use him, right? Because again, the brain chip, the Neuralink, is going to be for the rich. The small. Let's face it, though, that it's a very few that are going to even be able to afford this device. Okay, it's for the rich. They're going to have that implant in the forehead, which is a brain interface. And like everything else, though, Israeli state finding a place to deport, their population, the ones that survived the war, right? Because, they're being, there's a lot of famine going on, and they're just it's slowly dying out. But the ones that survive, they really want, to just dump them off, And so the Somalian president has now, spoken on the issue. We don't want Israeli state to come to us, bring problem to us. Somalian president says on Somaliland recognition. Somalian President Mohamud said his country does not want Israeli state to establish presence in Somaliland, warning Tel Aviv's recognition of the breakaway region risks bringing conflicts to the region. We never attacked the Israeli state. We never have created a problem to Israeli state. We don't want Israeli state to come to us and bring their problems to us, he told Turkish national broadcaster in an exclusive interview. He described the move as a very sad situation, calling for the respect of international law, which you know as well as I do, that there's no way that the Israeli state's ever going to respect that. Somalian president also exclaimed, Somaliland accepted Palestinian resettlement in exchange for Israeli recognition, meaning that, we recognize Israel. You always hear that. So it's a secret deal. That the two, would have recognition, right? Somalian President Mohamud said Israeli recognition of Somaliland was unexpected and strange, warning that the move carries implications for Palestinians in Gaza. Speaking from Istanbul, he outlined Somalia's concerns and said Israeli decision was abrupt and destabilizing. According to Mohamud, Somali intelligence indicates Somaliland accepted 3 Israeli conditions in exchange for the recognition. He listed them as a resettlement of Palestinians, that's on the top of it, and an Israeli military base on the Gulf of Aden coast, and accession to the Abraham Accords. So there we go. That's a really nice exchange. Because like everything else, though, they've been a break apart for quite some time. Now, I believe this is in Arabic.
التي بحوزتنا تظهر أن هناك 3 خطوات مهمة تم الاتفاق عليها مع أرض الصومال. الأولى هو إعادة توطين الفلسطينيين في أرض الصومال. ثانيا توفير قاعدة عسكرية لإسرائيل في خليج عدن، في ساحل خليج عدن. والخطوة الثالثة أن تنضم أرض الصومال إلى اتفاقات أبراهام. هذه هي المطالب الإسرائيلية الثلاثة التي قبلت بها أرض الصومال. هذه كما تفيد معلوماتنا إذا ليس واحدة أو هي الثلاثة، وإذا تم تطبيق هذه الثلاثة ماذا سيحدث مستقبلا؟ سينفتح صندوق الشرور في العالم.
Yeah, Pandora's box would be open to the world. Like everything else, though, he already knows what the implications of this is, right? As the Israeli state continues its onslaught. Israeli army detains 50 Palestinians, demolishes 2 more homes in the occupied West Bank. So, it's not just Gaza they're destroying, of course, the West Bank. They're pretty much annexing the entire place, and they now got a place to deport them to, right? Because, I think some of Jordan said they'd be taking them. Egypt says they don't want them, but pretty much so, they're going to deport all of them. Just like Chump over here, right? But worse than Chump, what's going on over there. Israeli state rounded up at least 50 Palestinians in military raids across the occupied West Bank on Thursday. Former prisoners include women who were among those arrested in the raids that targeted the cities of Ramallah, Albion, Hebron, Tubas, Tukhom, Nablus, Jenin, and East Jerusalem. Palestinian Prisoner Society said in a statement. It added that the arrest campaign was accompanied by extensive home raids, abuse, assaults against detainees and their families, and the destruction of their property. The Israeli army has arrested more than 7,000 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank last year. So they're just continuing to seize territory and then arrest those that refuse to have their homes destroyed. And like everything else, though, this video here, which hopefully plays, he's going into that a little bit about what's going on with the recognition of Somaliland and the huge fraud that it is.
There's no way am I suggesting that his work isn't
Slovakia.
important or that he's a manipulator or anything like that. I'm actually not familiar. And I think his clip is making good points. But I want to make a point about where and how these things seem to happen. I genuinely don't believe that we're at a point where organic, viral things happen anymore on the internet. Or if they do, it's very few and far between, and despite the efforts trying to control how that works. And maybe eventually I think it will never be the case. And I'm not saying that like it's pessimistic. I think that's been by design. And I think it's obvious that they would love to control that, and so why wouldn't they be seeking that? And you can quite clearly prove that they have been. So today, I don't think we have that anymore. So I'm saying that is because you have people like James Corbett, which I will always include, and I'll include the actual one from his website, False Flag, Secret History of Al-Qaeda, who's been breaking the reality of ISIS and Al-Qaeda down, and I mean, as I say every time, proof, nailing it to the wall, and and it gets reached where people want to, in certain circles, but it doesn't seem to break through in the certain conversations. But today, like a lot of things we're seeing, you're getting some of these things breaking into the partisan kind of conversation. And I'm not suggesting that's what he is. It's, again, keep that separate from him. I'm just using him as a point about the conversation he's having. She says, I follow this guy because he represents a burgeoning American awakening. And I agree with that. That I thought I'd never see. Agree with that, too.
All right. Like I said, he has a tendency to run on. I mean, 4.5 hours is a long way to go. But he talks about these things. I just say that he talks about these things. I mean, I'm not. Because it takes forever to thaw out anyways. But nonetheless, though, let's see if I can get it. Hold on.
Your journal ever calls Zelensky and battled strongman? Well, you know why, guys, because this is not real. We are dealing with straight-up propaganda, wag-the-dog scenarios, and it's all becoming very tired.
Yep, very tired.
Espionage Act. Now, that seemed like quite a stretch when ultimately what we're talking about does not seem to go to that, include
let's say
no evidence of other co-conspirators or crimes. Remember that? They released 40,000 pages. And we already saw they served 10 other co-conspirators. In a Wednesday morning social media post, Trump asserted without evidence that, quote, up to 90% of the Minnesota fraud could be traced to people who arrived in the state, quote, illegally from Somalia. And he called to, quote, send them back from where they came. The vast majority, and this is true whether or not CNN says it, you can verify for yourself, the vast majority of Minnesota residents of Somali descent are U.S. citizens. Now, what we're talking about are people who have U.S. citizenship, guys, not some green card or visa, which, by the way, doesn't change that they also still have constitutional rights. So you wouldn't be able to just deport them because they broke the law. There's very clear issues around that. They just lied to you about this the entire time. There's very, very, very specific carve-outs for something like that, and it does not apply to breaking the law like this. But you're a U.S. citizen, you have rights. And the point is, that, well, I've gone over this extensively, I don't want to get pulled into just that. Over the ICE and immigration conversation, we did entire shows highlighting the reality of constitutional rights that even apply to illegal immigrants. They just lied to you guys. It's amazing how many people don't know the reality of the Constitution.
Yeah, exactly.
Arrived at ABC Learning Center.
In a now viral video, right-wing YouTuber Nick Shirley claims nearly a dozen daycare centers in Minnesota are taking public funds but not providing a service. He says ABC Learning Center is one of the... It
plays better when I have it like this, lucky I have the windows
small. The
small.
He didn't respond because Shirley was in a group of about 8 people, and his staff were concerned about recent ICE activity.
Is this daycare coming from?
Slovakia.
The son?
Minnesota, USA. I really think people need to start seeing the bigger picture here. Do you really believe that some Somali people living there in Minneapolis could get away with defrauding the state for, say, $9-10 billion a year?
I mean, that first point really needs to be considered. Right? What's the likelihood that this would go on this long for $9 billion and that nobody would, even with the arrest that happened in the Biden administration, it just carried on?
The Somalia broad pivot,
of course, they're
right?
trying to make it out to be the specific.
Because Esau's being found out.
So he's lying to you. It's as simple as that. The reality is quite clear. And if you are arguing that Christians are being given, how could you possibly argue there's a church that exists there? Many of them, by the way. It's just like with Syria, guys. The same argument. Before that all started, Syria had I think it was the third largest Christian population in all of the Middle East. And then they go in to fight back the bad guys, and guess what gets demolished? The Christian population. That's the same way everywhere you look. I mean, this is a point that doesn't get taken well enough or made often enough. But if you take a step back and look at the war on terror, and really look at the populations that took, at least one of them took the largest brunt in every one of these countries, it was the Christian populations. Look at the one who's being killed in Syria right now. Christians, Alawites, it's just so very obvious. On top of that, he goes, in Nigeria, they're massacring them. Oh, that same story? You realize, the one that just got completely shown to be a lie, that even the government there and the people there on both sides, Christians and Muslims, are like, that's not happening? We're being gaslit. And clearly we can see where it's stemming from, guys.
Yep, gaslighting of the highest, right? Anyhow, pretty much though, a mass awakening. People are now like, I don't believe that these are drug cartels. I don't believe that, this whole thing about this or that. People are questioning the authorities. I gotta switch. I just lost the internet. So, switch. See? You always have more than one way of getting in, right? Iranian military advisor warns of enemy plots, urges national unity. Well, what's going on? Well, the U.S. and its proxies, Mossad, as well as the Israeli state, are trying to cause insurrections inside of Iran. And they're very well aware of it. These, all of a sudden, uprisings, isn't that what started the whole war in Syria to begin with? Is that these people are rebelling against the government, they want this, they want that, right? And the whole thing was a fraud. It was a farce. Senior advisor to the chief of staff of Iran's armed forces warned of enemy plots disguised under slogans such as women's rights, emphasizing the need for vigilance, national unity, and avoiding societal divisions. He noted adversaries cannot achieve their goals through military or security means, and are instead seeking to create discord, highlighting the importance of officials. Pretty much what he's saying, though, is that these protests, are definitely being engineered, and we already know. And, it's all over. Iran, facing worst unrest since 2022. See, now, there's unrest everywhere, right? This is the same shit that they try to do with Syria, right? Get you in on it that, there's uprisings in Syria, we got to support the Syrian rebels. Remember? Well, of course. Iran has been hit by a wave of mass protests prompting an enduring economic crisis and the extreme volatility of the national currency. The unrest has been cheered by Mossad spy agency, which claimed it has agents embedded with the protesting crowds. Well, at least they're admitting it. Iran's archival Israeli openly endorsed the unrest with the Mossad spy agency, cheering for the protesters on its X account and claiming its agents are embedded in the protesting crowds. Go out into the streets together. The time has come. We are with you, Mossad wrote. Not just from a distance or through words, we are also with you on the ground. The unrest promptly spread into multiple cities across the country and turned political, with some demonstrations demonstrating the reinstatement of the monarchy toppled by the Islamic Revolution back in 1979. See, like everything else, though, the Israeli state, the U.S. and its allies would love for everything to go back to the way it was prior to 1979. So, they're installing this coup. Iran is aware of it. But that's what they're trying to do. Here we go again. Just like Syria, right? Just like they did with Syria. And like everything else, though, Apostle Tahar has always told us that when they go after Iran, better look up, because that's that's pretty much the end all, right? The end all goal was to take out Iran, and we already seen war against Iran last year, and Trump is already touting that there'll be more, as this video goes into as well.
For more details, let's cross now to Professor at the University of Tehran, Syed Mohammad Marandi. Mr. Marandi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, we're seeing lots of unverified videos and reports online, but what do we actually know about these protests so far? What can you tell us?
They're not widespread, and they're not across the country.
There we go, another lie.
The fall of the rapid decline of the Iranian currency, and that's largely because of U.S. sanctions and pressure put on Iran by the collective West. There were protests in the market in Tehran mostly, and then we saw, they were peaceful, and then we gradually saw infiltration, and it was clear that these were organized groups, small groups of people, sometimes 5, 10, 15, in different parts of Tehran, and then in a few other areas they began to push for violence. And in fact, there is footage showing how the arguments were taking place between the protesters and those
provocateurs
who infiltrated and were calling for violence, and the protesters were rejecting it.
Now,
in general, the violence was limited in some areas and small groups of people, as you can see in the videos. There's a lot of AI footage, there's a lot of old footage and manipulated footage.
Yeah, there you go.
General, there hasn't been much
So it's kind of a hoax.
For the first time, a volunteer, a Basij member, was murdered. A volunteer who was helping the police. And then this morning in a small town, there was also violence again by a small group of people. This is contrary to what we see in the Western media, which is always saying that Iran is about to collapse and Iran is on the verge of the government is on the verge of being overthrown. We've been hearing that for 40-some years now. Does not have popular support.
And these protests are reportedly caused by the fall of Iran's national currency. What exactly are people on the streets calling it?
Well, there are two things here. There were small protests that were largely peaceful, and that was by people who were working and had businesses and were having great difficulty dealing with the decline of the rapid decline of the currency. But those who were infiltrated, who were trying to infiltrate, they were a different group of people, different set of people, and it's obvious that they're controlled from abroad, just like on previous occasions. They're in contact through social media. Often they don't even know each other. They're told to gather, to go to a particular place and meet these other people and to do certain things. And that's what happens in different towns and cities where they're active in the country. They're largely violent, as you saw in your own footage. They were throwing stones at police officers. One of the police officers last night was badly burned and taken to the hospital. Again, another person, a volunteer who was helping the police, was murdered last night. That was the first death. So these people, these violent people who are being supported from abroad and who are being encouraged by the Persian language media, BBC Persian, Iran International, all these other outlets that are basically being guided by Western and Zionist intelligence agencies. These violent protesters, these violent people, they're small in number, but they are creating damage. But this has, again, you have to make a clear separation between those who are upset about the economic situation. If you look at the screen, these people are kicking the police officers who are walking back. In any case, nothing of great significance is going to happen. This will ultimately die down, and then the West will have to move on to a different story. But their hopes, and this of course comes at a time when Netanyahu is meeting Trump in the United States, and where both are threatening Iran with airstrikes on the nuclear program, and which they said has been obliterated, and also on Iran's ballistic missile defense program. So to see these violent rioters who've infiltrated the peaceful protests, like what you're seeing here, this was one of the peaceful protests who are criticizing the economy, then the violent protesters went in and infiltrated. People do not support violence against the police and against the state and attacking public buildings when the United States and the Israeli regime are threatening Iran.
So like everything else, though, yeah, they might detest the things that's going on with the currency, but would never do all this. This is all being staged. Of course it is, because they want to give the people over here the illusion that Iran's oppressing its people, right? And that a brutal dictator needs to be overthrown. Even though their leader, Rouhani, was killed last year. or 2 years ago in a helicopter crash, which we all know was a Mossad, it was a CIA takeout. They took him out. Just like everything else that transpired last year. Assassination, pretty much. Be mindful of your soldiers. Lozani warns after U.S. President Trump meddles some post. In other words, trying to say if they kill a protester. Because this is what Donald Trump said. If Iran shots and violently kills peaceful protesters, oh boy, the Syrian rebels, peaceful protesters, sound familiar? Which is their custom, the United States will come to their rescue. Oh boy, I have heard this shit before. Didn't they say that with Iraq, that didn't George W., or not George W., the original George Bush say that, to the Kurds, that if you were to come against Saddam Hussein, you would have American support. You know that they are a liar. They didn't even support the Kurds, who actually mostly supported the U.S., but the U.S. has always lied. We are locked and loaded, ready to go. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Trump. So in other words, pretty much so, they are now, directly threatening. But guess what? Remember where your bases are. Be mindful. So, yeah, they're doing everything they can to provoke them, right? How and why are protests spreading in Iran? So like everything else, small protests began on Sunday in Tehran as the heart of the Iranian capital over another sharp fall in the national currency. On Wednesday, the epicenter of the anti-regime protest was the southern city of Fasa, which we know that they're not really against the regime. See, they're all about regime change, but they're not against the Iranian rulership. They just, the ones that were actually protesting about the currency are not looking for a new leadership. That's what this article would try to make you believe, right? Because again, that's how they want to spin it. Israeli gunfire hits farmland in southern Syria, killing livestock. So like everything else, though, Israeli state continuing to escalate in Syria. Israeli terrorists opened fire Thursday at agricultural land in the village of Al-Rifad in the southern western countryside Quneitra, killing numbers of sheep. Oh, wait, they're doing that in Gaza too, according to Syrian state media. They're just slaughtering animals just for the fuck of it, right? Despite Damascus posing no threat to Tel Aviv, Israeli state continues to conduct airstrikes against Syria that have killed civilians and destroyed Syrian army positions, vehicles, weapons, and ammunitions. The Israeli state has occupied most of the Syrian Golan Heights since 1967, following developments surrounding the fall of the Syrian government late last year. Israeli state declared the 1974 disengagement agreement void and went into the Syrian buffer zone. So like everything else, they are looking to, well, Damascus wants them out, okay? And I believe that Israeli states could have pushed and tried to take control of Damascus, which I believe leads to the destruction of Damascus ultimately in that day. And we know that that day is coming and that all the nations will be gathered here. We're going to see some shit this year. And I'm excited about it. Again, I can't wait to get out of here, but I'm waiting patiently, just like the brother said. I'm waiting patiently for it. I'm still doing what I need to do. Hey, I've gone through some pretty hard shit and still was doing a fucking video. Not making excuses, but, dealing with the loss of a family member and still doing a video on that same day and the next day and the next day and the next day. Doing a video every day like Apostle Har said. As the standard. The standard. At least keeping the standard, and doing a video every day, at least 10 minutes or more. I am plugged in. What's everybody else's excuse to not even keep up with that? Damascus and Tel Aviv currently engaged in negotiations over a security agreement with Syria, demanding the withdrawal of Israeli terrorist positions held before December 2014 as precondition for any agreement. So like everything else, they're asking for the withdrawal. Hayat al-Sham is actually asking, the transitional government that they always talked about, is asking for the withdrawal. You think the Israeli state's going to honor it? Fuck no. It was all about having a weaker Syria, a destabilized Syria. And like everything else, though, that's going on over here, because, their narrative has fallen, that pretty much, though, that so-called Hamas, kidnapping and, taking hostages, everybody knows that that's a fraud, and the whole thing was jinxed. It was made to look like, and that Hamas works for the Israeli state anyways, and so is controlled opposition. What you see may look real, but it isn't real, because like everything else, though, any of the so-called Israeli hostages that were returned said that they were treated well. Why? Because it was a staged event. It was staged to look like, so that way they could just go on, and play the victim role, and then everybody would support the Israeli state, which has failed, to pretty much annex and get rid of all the Palestinian population. Mandani pledged future for Palestinians in New York amid calls to arrest Netanyahu and free Palestine. So like everything else, though, he is actually somebody who's a very high leader in the U.S. who happens to be of Arab descent. On a cold night, New York wrote a new chapter in its history when Mandani was sworn in as the city's mayor. So he's, mayor, holding a good position. Swearing ceremony was held on the steps of Manhattan City Hall, where Mandani placed in his hand the Holy Quran and took the oath of office. Tens of thousands of residents attended the event, which featured Palestinian flags and banners that read "Free Palestine" and "Our enemy is Netanyahu." So like everything else, though, in his inaugural speech, Mandani spoke directly to the Palestinian communities in such areas as Bay Bridge. He said that they would no longer be excluded from political life, and stressed that they would have the chance to tell their own stories and take part in shaping the future in New York City. So, again, you got to look at our enemy, and say that, well, this could be controlled opposition. Sure. If you're holding any political seat, you got to play ball with those Rothschilds. You got to play ball with, you got to drink the juicy juice. You got to, get down with it. Get down on it, because, hey, you got to be sucking somebody's dick, basically. And you have to do what those 1% tell you. Even Bashar al-Assad had to suck dick, okay? Y'all got to suck dick because you're part of, the political fields which they control, Pretty much you don't have a position unless you answer to those billionaires behind the scenes. Never mind the man behind the curtain, right? And we know who those billionaires are. We know the Zionists that control the 1%, including opposition. They control all sides, a.k.a. the Illuminati, the secret council of Esau Edom, right? But we know who that secret council is, as it goes into Isaiah chapter 14. And we're coming into a time when he'll be found no more, right? And we can't wait for him to be taken out of power. And we get restoration, right? Isaiah chapter 14, and this is not dealing with, Lucifer means light bearer, okay? But Lucifer also means Illuminati, so it just means light bearer. But when you get right down to it, it's talking about how Esau's going to be taken out of his rulership, out of his kingdom. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. A lot of people try to say that Satan got kicked out of heaven. That's not what this is talking about. This is talking about how Esau's about to fall, how his kingdom is about to fall and never be brought up again, a.k.a. the king of Babylon, as it says in the parentheses, right? How have you fallen from your kingdom? Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. O star of the morning, light bearer, son of the dawn, you have been cut down to the ground, you who have weakened the nations. King of Babylon, right? Who's the king of Babylon? We know this, DJ Chump, right? But you said in your heart, I will send him to heaven. He created the Space Force. Think about that. So he's ascending to heaven, right? Which also has to do with the elements, right? So he claims to have a Space Force. I will raise my throne above the stars of Yahweh. Meaning that he will rise above the Israelites. I will sit on the Mount of Assembly in the remote parts of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. A.k.a. that they are God, and that there is none other beside me. This is what Esau has declared, especially the king of Babylon. But in fact, you will be brought down to Sheol, to the remote recesses of the pit. the region of the dead, meaning that pretty much, though, you and your allies will be brought down, but especially, Babylon the Great. Those who see you will gaze at you. They will consider you, saying, "Is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook kingdoms?" AKA, it's like, hey, they'll see Esau as this man who made the world like a wilderness and overthrew its cities, who did not permit his prisoners to return home. Think about that, though. Is he not deporting people, right? Is he not, imprisoning everybody, coming into cities? All the kings of the nations, all of them lie dead in glorious array, each one in his own sepulchre. But you, king of Babylon, have been cast out of your tomb, like a rejected branch, clothed with the slain who are pierced by the sword. In other words, they have been destroyed, because Esau's going to be destroyed completely. Clothed with slain who are pierced by the sword, who go down to the stones of the pit, into the carcasses, are thrown like a dead body trampled underfoot. You will not be united with them in burial, because you have destroyed your land. You slain your own people. May the descendants of the evildoers never be named. So like everything else, though, Esau thinks that his city is going to continue forever, that Babylon's going to go on forever, but they will never form again, And hopefully this is the year that all this comes to fruition, right? We want to see the next kingdom, but we got to wait patiently. Have patience, meaning just keep doing what we're doing, man. Keep prophesying against Babylon. Keep prophesying against Esau, which includes Russia, by the way. Keep prophesying, man. Eventually, this is going to pick up, which if you don't see it picking up, and we're going to eventually get out of here, but we just got to endure just a little bit longer. So hopefully all this has been edifying. For that I want to say Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rekakadash, Wa Abba Babal. And Brakatum to your hopeful elect. Shalom.